On the news tonight, His Majesty hands over the Supreme Commander banner to 3 battalions of an armoured brigade at a military parade. The Prime Minister says Jordan welcomes Iraqi investment and will offer facilities to the business community. And the first migrants deported from Greek islands under an EU-Turkey deal are shipped back to Turkey. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. His Majesty the King, the Supreme Commander of the Jordan Armed Forces Arab Army, handed over the Supreme Commander banner to 3 battalions of the King Hussein bin Talal 40th Armoured Brigade. Receiving the flag were the Prince Hussein bin Abdullah 1st Mechanized Battalion, the 2nd Armoured Battalion, and Prince Ali bin Hussein 4th Tank Battalion at a military ceremony attended by royal family members and top civic and military officials. The Al Hussein bin Talal 40th Armoured Brigade had a combat record in battles fought by the armed forces since its establishment in 1961. The banner's handover took place at a military ceremony held in recognition of the heroism of the army units and sacrifices in defense of the country. Upon arrival at the site, the Supreme Commander was accorded full honors, including a 21-gun salute by the Artillery Corps. He was greeted by the Prime Minister and Defense Minister and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and King's Advisor for Military Affairs and the Commander of the Armoured Brigade. Addressing the ceremony, the Commander of the Brigades commended the armed forces' bravery and sacrifices to defend the country. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour said the Iraqi private sector and businessmen are welcome in Jordan and offer facilities to their investments in the kingdom. He spoke at a meeting with the President of the Iraqi Business Council, Majid al-Saadi, and a delegation comprising Iraqi lawmakers and business leaders. The representatives of private sector unions and associations inside and outside Iraq are meeting in Amman to discuss setting up Iraqi Economic Forum. The Prime Minister told the team that Iraq is a brotherly country with which Jordan had strong ties and is keen to safeguard them. Jordan, he said, had maintained a policy of non-intervention in the internal affairs of fellow Arab countries and backs the choice of Iraqis. He welcomed the convening of the Iraqi private sector meeting in Amman, stressing that the kingdom is open to Iraqi businessmen and investments. The head of the Iraqi Business Council thanked Jordan for the support it offers to Iraqi investors. He said the planned Iraqi Economic Forum is aimed to bring the Iraqi private sector under one umbrella to face the economic challenges facing their country as a result of falling oil prices that resulted in a huge deficit in the country's budget. The United States carried out an airstrike in Syria that killed a prominent leader of al-Nusra Front group. U.S. officials named the militant leader as Abu Firas al-Surri. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, which tracks violence in the country, said he was killed in a suspected Syrian or Russian airstrike on a village near Idlib in northwestern Syria yesterday. The attack occurred on the same day Syrian government forces and allied militias backed by Russian airstrikes drove Daesh militants out of the town of Al-Qaryatain after encircling it over the past few days. Soldiers loyal to President Bashar al-Assad patrolled the town, most of it totally destroyed in fighting, with buildings razed to the ground. Surrounded by hills, Al-Qaryatain is 100 kilometers west of the ancient city of Palmyra, which government forces recaptured from Daesh a week ago. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's forces have been trying to retake the town and other pockets under Daesh control to reduce the militants' military power in western Syria. More than 200 Syrian refugees crossed into the kingdom over the past 24 hours. A military source said border guards provided the refugees with the necessary aid before transferring them to refugee camps. The Jordani Royal Medical Services personnel attended to sick refugees at border facilities. Border guards aborted an attempt by 2 foreign nationals to infiltrate into a neighboring country. A statement by the Jordan Armed Forces Arab Army said the border guards applied the rule of engagement, arresting the infiltrators and referring them to concerned authorities. About 25 people were killed and more than 60 injured in violence across Iraq. Most of the casualties occurred in suicide attacks targeting members of Shiite militias and military forces. Daesh claims several of the attacks. Security sources said a suicide car bomb blew up in a remote center of Basra, Iraq's largest southern city, killing 5 people. Another targeted a convoy of the Popular Mobilization Force, killing 5 in the town of Mashhadiyya, north of Baghdad. People wearing suicide belts blew themselves up at a military checkpoint in the north of Baghdad, killing 5, and in the middle of a crowd outside a restaurant in the southern city of Nasiriyya, killing 4. 2 members of the government security forces were killed in suicide car bombs in the province of Al-Nabr, west of Baghdad, and a 3rd was killed south of Baghdad by an explosive device. 2 people were also killed when mortar rounds hit the district of Abu Ghraib, west of the capital. An autopsy on a Palestinian youth killed by Israeli soldiers in the West Bank town of Hebron last month shows it was the bullet that struck him in the head that killed him, and not the other multiple gunshots wounds to the rest of his body. 21-year-old Abdel Fattah al-Sharif was one of the 2 Palestinians whom the occupation army said had attacked an Israeli soldier in the West Bank town of Hebron on March 24th. The Israeli military had killed both men. Video filmed by a bystander shows Sharif lying on the ground, immobilized, after Israeli troops responded to a stabbing attack. A soldier is then seen taking aim and firing at his head. Human rights groups say the Hebron incident is a further evidence that Israel is using excessive force against suspected Palestinian assailants. Palestinians call the killings extrajudicial killings. Palestinian pathologist Rayyan Al-Ali read out his conclusions on the autopsy. He had joined the Israeli team during the autopsy on the suspected assailant Abdel Fattah al-Sharif in Jerusalem.
The victim was suffering from many gunshot wounds that made in and out holes in many parts of the body, some in the lower part of the body and the others to the right side of the chest. Also, there are shots in the humerus with damage in the bones, and there was bleeding inside the chest, but the shot that directly caused death was the one to the head, which damaged the brain completely.
The first migrants deported from Greek islands under a disputed EU-Turkey deal were shipped back to Turkey. In return, the European Union will take in thousands of Syrian refugees directly from Turkey and reward it with money, visa-free travel, and progress in its EU membership negotiations. EU authorities said none of those deported had requested asylum in Greece, and all had left voluntarily. More in this report.
A boat arrives on the horizon in Turkey from the Greek island Lesbos. On board, the first group of migrants being returned under a landmark EU deal that went into effect on Monday, April 4th. Around 130 migrants were bussed to the Greek port at daybreak, where they boarded 2 ships to take them back to Turkey. Under the plan, Ankara will take back all migrants and refugees, including Syrians who entered Greece illegally after March 20th. Monday's migrants were primarily from Bangladesh and Pakistan and had not applied for asylum. Eva Moncure is the spokesperson for the EU border agency Frontex.
So the procedure was very calm. Everything was very orderly. Migrants were put on buses. And when the buses were ready, the buses came here to the harbor.
For accepting the returned migrants and refugees, the EU will reward Turkey with more money, early visa-free travel, and has promised to take in thousands of Syrians. The uncontrollable influx of people fleeing war has put a massive strain on Europe, with more than 1 million people making their way through Greece in 2015. But the plan's success is uncertain. Even as the first deportations were underway Monday, a Turkish Coast Guard intercepted dozens of people trying to get to Lesbos.
More than 11.5 million documents from the files of law firm Mossack Fonseca, based in the tax haven of Panama, have been leaked, revealing details of hundreds of thousands of clients. Governments across the world began investigating possible financial wrongdoing after the leak of 4 decades of documents from the law firm that specialized in setting up offshore companies. Here's more.
Lifting the veil on the shadowy world of offshore finance. A new global investigation has revealed how politicians, government officials and their families allegedly used a law firm in Panama to evade taxes and launder money. The International Consortium of Investigative Journalists has sifted through millions of files leaked from Mossack Fonseca. They appear to show how clients, including billionaires and heads of state, use shell companies to hide millions of dollars from the authorities. The Kremlin has dismissed links to President Vladimir Putin. He isn't named in the leak, but Britain's Guardian newspaper says the documents show a network of secret offshore deals and loans worth $2 billion that can be traced to him. Mossack Fonseca denies all wrongdoing, saying it does not foster or promote illegal acts. But campaigners condemn the lack of transparency.
There's a very thin grey line between tax avoidance, which may be legal, and tax evasion, which is definitely illegal. But the problem is with offshore secrecy, with being able to hide your identity behind complicated webs of companies, it's impossible to know what's really going on.
Tax authorities in Australia, New Zealand and the Netherlands say they'll begin investigations. But many analysts are sceptical about whether the leak will actually kickstart policy change.
On the basis that Turkeys never vote for Christmas, and supposedly many of these politicians are allegedly beneficiaries of these kind of tax havens, then I suspect that the substantive move is actually going to be little to nothing.
But the so-called Panama Papers may be about to have a high-profile casualty. The BBC is reporting that Iceland's Prime Minister, Sigmundur Gunnlaugsson, and his wife are implicated, and he's now under pressure to resign.
Clashes between Azerbaijan and Armenian-backed separatists erupted over the breakaway region of Nagorno-Karabakh. Azerbaijan said it would stop fighting the separatists, but Armenia denounced as a gesture and said violence was continuing. Nagorno-Karabakh, which lies inside Azerbaijan but is controlled by ethnic Armenians, has run its own affairs with heavy military and financial backing from Armenia since the separatist war ended. Multiple efforts over the years to reach a permanent settlement led by France, Russia and the United States have failed. A woman in Newfoundland, Canada, was seriously injured after she drove off of a steep cliff on Signal Hill. The 20-year-old woman drove through a gate on the edge of the Signal Hill parking lot, falling over the edge where she was ejected from the car. Novak Djokovic became Master of the Masters after securing a record-breaking 28th second-tier crown at the Miami Open with a comfortable victory over Kai Nishikori. Djokovic continued to break records as he claimed an historic 6th Miami Open title in straight set 6-3, 6-3. The 28-year-old Serb took 85 minutes to join American Andre Agassi as a six-time Miami Open winner for his 63rd career title. He claimed $1,028,000, becoming the sport's all-time leading money winner with career earnings approaching $100 million. Barcelona are ready to bounce back despite losing 2-1 to Spanish rival Real Madrid. Barca's 38-39 match unbeaten run may have ended with Saturday's home defeat in El Clasico fixture, but the European champions are adamant it was a temporary blip on their road to more glory. Barca are 6 points clear of nearest pursuers Atletico at the top of the La Liga, but the attacking trident of Lionel Messi, Neymar and Luis Suarez seem to lack sharpness against Real. And finally, a bit cool in much of the country for the rest of tonight, but pleasant in the Jordan Valley and the Dead Sea. Tomorrow it will be warm across the kingdom with some medium and high clouds and a chance for drizzles mainly in the east. Temperatures in Amman will reach the high of 27 degrees. Winds will be southwesterly moderate to brisk blowing dust in the Badia region. Further south, the Gulf of Aqaba should expect a relatively hot day tomorrow, while winds will be northerly moderate and somewhat choppy seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to close here our top stories once again, His Majesty hands over the Supreme Commander banner to 3 battalions of an armoured brigade at a military parade. The Prime Minister says Jordan welcomes Iraqi investment and will offer facilities to the business community. And the first migrants deported from Greek islands under an EU-Turkey deal are shipped back to Turkey. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Khulal. Thank you for watching and good night.